This is SEEK Bytes, the software engineering podcast by seek.com. Join our experts as they share their thoughts and tips on mastering the craft of code. From career advice to technical deep dives, SEEK Bytes is the podcast for software engineers by software engineers. Welcome to SEEK Bytes. Today on the podcast we have Nick Skoufis, Bridget Barnes and myself, Elliott Millar. And today we're going to be talking about working from home at SEEK. So firstly, I would like to welcome everyone to the SEEK HQ in Cremorne, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I'd like to pay respects to our elders past, present and emerging and acknowledge them as the custodians and original owners of these lands, airways and waterways, and super excited to have Bridget Barnes, Senior Software Engineer at SEEK. We have Nick Skoufis, now known as Senior Staff Engineer. Nick Skoufis, so happy to have you both here. I'm Elliott Millar, who is also a Senior Engineer. So excited to be here today, our first day of recording. How are you two doing? How are you doing, Bridget?
I kind of think you were right with that second coffee. I think I should have gone for the second coffee. That's answer enough, right?
You're looking at me expectantly. I'm doing well. I've had a coffee, nervous energy.
Do you want
exciting.
a second?
Do I want a second one? No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good at this level of caffeination.
So my name's Elliott Millar, formerly known as Elliott Hobbs. That's a whole
Name
other thing.
change.
Yeah, name change. No, I took my wife's name when we got married.
Wow.
So
Nice.
you know,
You're not hiding from some sort of criminal activity in the past.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I got hired at SEEK, right? So the
Sure,
the
yeah.
criminal check came back
Do
clear.
that
So
criminal history check.
I am relatively new to SEEK. I've been here for about 6 months, and I've got to say I'm loving it. I am one of the senior engineers on one of our front-end teams. So I mostly look after the website of things, but a little bit of back-end stuff. Traditionally, I'm full stack. So my entire career, I've always been full stack. But at SEEK here, I'm just kind of front-end, which is, it's a nice change of pace. Not responsible for dealing with everything under the sun. It allows a bit more focus. So why don't we throw over to Nick Skoufis.
Hi, Nick. How long have I been at SEEK? Almost 3 years?
Yeah, 420 of the 20th, right?
What's that?
It was for 2020, right?
Wow, yeah, I guess
For
it was.
2020, wow.
Right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I started remotely. My background, I sort of did a little bit of full stack and bits and pieces, but sort of descended the stack, I think is the way I like to think of it, and sort of ended up in sort of internal teams working on internal platform stuff. So deploying infrastructure and, building Kubernetes platforms and like broadly helping developers, helping the rest of the developers of the organization be more productive and be more efficient and deploy quicker and more safely and all those sorts of things. And so that's where I am now, and that's what I've ended up doing, building our kind of internal developer platform. Yeah, it's been great. This is the longest I've been at a proper job at least, for a little while. And so far so good. Enjoying things, there's ups and downs. But life is pretty good at the moment. Bridget.
Hi, I'm Bridget. I've been here for, I think, almost 5 years. I don't remember anymore.
It's all a bit of a blur, isn't it?
Honestly, yeah. And like the pandemic feels like lost time. I don't
Absolutely
know how long I've actually been here. Yeah, similar to Elliott, started working part-time job doing software development during my degree. Did that for a little bit. Honestly, wanted to get paid more, do some more stuff, have more responsibility. Ended up applying for SEEK because it was really similar to the full stack that I was working. Was mostly doing back-end then. Came to SEEK and started doing full stack for a little while. Fell into internal tooling with Nick, and now I've recently moved back to product because I want to try and get some of that full stack experience up again so I can make better tools. I'm going to start a team to rival Nick's.
Ooh,
yeah.
I like it, the competition. One of the first topics we're thinking about talking about is working from home. Bridget, why don't you kick us off from that?
Okay.
Who is working from home? What do they do?
Who
Who is this mystic working from home?
Oh, the mystic working from home. Yes, the mystic working from home cursed us all at the beginning of 2020 and said, I will trap you all in your towers for however many years, and you will have to figure it out. Did either of you really work at home before the pandemic?
I did. Yeah, I think in my job before SEEK, we were kind of heading towards like 2 days working from home and the rest of the days in the office. And actually, interestingly, they were all kind of staggered. I can't totally remember why we decided to do that, but we kind of ended up with, okay, this one day we're all going to be in the office. These other days we're going to kind of pick, which day you want to be in the office, which day you want to be at home. We also had like a learning day on Thursdays. So we were at home for that because like why really be in the office for that? So yeah, a little bit. What about you, Elliott?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny one. I was working from home 2 to 3 days a week for like 18 months before the pandemic even hit. So I used to work for a company up in Brisbane. My wife and I were living up there before we got married, and the people in my office were very cool. They, the bosses were like, well, I don't care where you work. As long as you're getting work done, why do you need to come into the office? That's fine. So I was like, great, works for me. And then there were days where, I'd get in and nobody would be in the office till 11 or 12 o'clock anyway. And I was like, why did I waste an hour commuting? So I did that for a little while there. And it meant, I would just remote into my desktop, sit at home, just chillax, be with the dogs, wouldn't have to commute. So I could walk the dogs in the morning, in the afternoon, and, it was great. And then you get all those little chores done around the house, vacuuming, cooking, cleaning, etc. So for me, I was doing that before the pandemic hit, and then my wife and I moved down to Melbourne before our first child was born. And so we moved down September 2019, and so I was working full-time remote still for that company up in Brisbane. So for me, I was just kind of like, yeah, working from home. I was used to it. I was fine with it. The team I was in was pretty small anyway, so we were always on Slack anyway. So it wasn't like it made a huge difference being in the room. And I'm not sure if I really buy into the whole thing of you have to be in the same room to be able to work together as a team. I feel like if you all have to be in the same room to be able to work as a team, you're probably not working great as a team anyway. But also then you don't have all those distractions of the office, right? You don't have phones going off. You don't have people yelling in meetings. You don't have whatever the case is. And then that tunnel vision that you get when you're coding, when you're in the zone, doesn't necessarily get distracted because, somebody over there can't figure out the printer and is doing whatever, or somebody comes up and goes, oh, do you know how to connect to the Wi-Fi? Or somebody's like, hey, I can't debug this error when they haven't Googled it, right? So for me, I was like, working from home, totally normal. Pandemic though, the pandemic working from home was a big shift because everything was shut. Yeah. So for me, that was the big adjustment because I couldn't go for a cheeky brunch anymore. I couldn't go for coffee. There was no reason to leave the house. So it was pretty dark there for a little bit. And I think that, definitely there was feelings of isolation. Whereas post-pandemic working from home, it's totally become the norm. It's really funny. When I was, a junior and kind of a mid-level, the idea of working from home, I was like, what? Why would I want to do that? I was like, the office is where the table tennis is and the coffee machine and the cool people. Whereas now I'm like, oh, working from home is great. I don't have to commute. I can, save time. I can get all these chores done. And I tell you, I've got so many chores to do nowadays with with 2 kids. So it's, it's a handful. And I think we're really lucky at SEEK to be able to work from home and to be able to have flexible schedules. And I feel like the market and engineering in general has more shifted towards that. How do you two feel about post-pandemic working from home, or even during the pandemic? How did you cope?
I mean, I think that's you do bring up a very interesting point there, which I think in my mind a little bit does kind of split the world to some degree, in that you're saying you have 2 kids, you have 2 dogs, you have a partner at home, right? I have a cat, but right, and a partner at home, but I definitely also am leaning much more towards the work from home, right? I think also I don't know how old you are, Elliott. I want to ask. It's but I think you and I may be a little bit older than Bridget. Maybe might be true, right? I think that in my mind, there's definitely a little bit of a split. That particularly the grads and people earlier in their career, and I remember from being early in my career, like being in the office was fun. There were people that I hung out with and had lots of stuff to do and went out for drinks and had lunch and whatever. And not that I don't enjoy doing that stuff now, but like the balance has shifted a little bit. I got stuff to do at home. Like, maybe it's easier if I just stay at home today and get that stuff done. Whereas I feel like, I don't want to say something that makes me sound like a... sound geriatric, but the kids, right? The kids want to come into the office, right?
Look, I'm definitely wearing that geriatric hat. Look, I feel like such an old man. Everything hurts. I'm constantly in pain. I'm tired all the time. But maybe that's just having 2 young kids, and I mean that's on me, right? So, look, I definitely hear you there.
Do you think that's true, Bridget?
To some degree. Like, I do think that while a lot of the things I used to be like, oh, you could never do that online, like a lot of pairing, like that's fine. You can do that online. I do think that early in my career, like I definitely learned a lot by like sitting next to people, overhearing what they were doing and be like, hey, tell me about that. Or like, I used to sit next to some very, very talented, very, very smart people who were known for being very talented and very smart. So they would have other people come up and ask them questions. And I would just sit there and be like, yeah, I want to know the answer to that too. So there was a lot of incidental learning just from being in the office and being around really, really great people. And I definitely have felt the lack of that since the pandemic started, and not having a lot of people in the office anymore, right? Like you don't kind of get that incidental thing of just listening into people solve problems. That was a really great way for me to learn. Or like, sitting next to someone and them like offhandedly being like, oh, hey, you'd probably be interested in learning this. Like, it's not important enough that they'd pull you into a Zoom call or anything, but it's sort of out of sight, out of mind, right? Like, unless you're thinking like, oh yeah, like that junior might be interested in learning this. Like, you kind of lose that a little bit. And if anyone is doing that in a way that's kind of working remote, I would really love to hear that.
I mean, you and I did bits and pieces of that
We did.
At times.
Yeah.
But it was very deliberate and it was scheduled and it was, here's a block of time that we're going to spend working on, it was writing documentation.
Yeah.
We're going to work on that together and that was great.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun doing that.
Same.
It's a funny thing in software development where there are things that everybody can sort of agree, like we all care about, right? Like we can all agree that we care about writing clean, maintainable, testable code, whatever, even if you don't necessarily do it. You can nod your head and go, yeah, we all care about that. Documentation is a weird one because we can all nod our heads and say that it is important, but when push comes to shove, it's less important than the writing of the code. And disagree, maybe? I don't know. Communication in general, I think, is one of those things that we can all nod our heads at in the industry and say, yes, communication skills. It's almost like a cliche, right? Communication skills, underrated. People with great communication skills, it's a bit of a multiplier, right? It takes you from being good to great, right?
Absolutely. And I think that ties back into what we're talking about with working from home.
Yeah.
If you have good communication skills, working from home isn't going to make a difference, right? You're still going to be able to effectively communicate via email, via Slack, in meetings. I do think Bridget's totally right. You do miss out on that incidental learning and those incidental convos or your water cooler chat, as it were, where you go, oh, did you know that Nick's actually just working on this tool called Valet? And Bridget might go, well, what's Valet? And then suddenly they've gone off and Bridget's now an expert in Valet after going down this rabbit hole for 2 weeks because over the water cooler somebody mentioned it, which is definitely something that you can miss. But I think that there are ways around that. There are ways to try and include that still as part of your active teamwork.
Well, there are, but you have to be deliberate about it, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely
I
have to
totally
be
agree
deliberate.
with you. Communication is more important than ever. I would say, though, it's actually not really enough for you individually to be a good communicator. You have to create that, you have to foster that communication with your entire team, right?
Absolutely.
Because you can be as useful and helpful and effective as you want, but there's a reason why we're organized into teams and not just, individuals, right? We need everybody to get the stuff done. And if there's one fantastic communicator and a bunch of other people who are not as good at communication, you need to figure out ways of fostering that sort of environment and being very deliberate. And this is kind of, one of my big bugbears is like, I think there is a bit of a feeling that it'll just kind of happen and people will go to the office and you'll figure it out a little bit. And I'm totally like, probably feels very uncomfortable and very forced. It's something I'm trying to sort of navigate in my team at the moment. But saying to people, we're going to carve out time to, share cool tooling with each other, right? Or even, the most uncomfortable one, right? Forced fun. People hate forced fun.
Do they ever?
We're going to carve out time to have to socialize within our team. Sounds awful to most people, especially introverted, not always, but, socially awkward software developers sometimes, right? But
how did we even get 3 software engineers in a room, like recording?
A miracle.
Right, and then to tell them that we're going to carve out an hour a week to have some fun and play some games. But I think it's crucial. I think it's incredibly important. And if you're not going to do that, if that's a bridge too far, get people back in the office. That's maybe my... I'm going to throw out many controversial opinions in this podcast because otherwise, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
But that's my controversial opinion is that if you're not going to commit to making time for, and if you look at the literature, right, which is like companies that are really good at remote work and do a lot of remote work and have been doing it for years in some cases, right, pre-pandemic, they call it informal conversation, right? Like as opposed to the formal stuff that's about work, right? Yeah. Informal, talking about what you're doing on the weekend, having fun, chatting, whatever.
Yes.
If you're not going to carve out time for informal conversation, force people to come in on Thursdays. Or Thursdays, we're not forced to come in on Thursdays at SEEK. That's the day that, we tend to come in, at least in the Melbourne office. But if you're not willing to carve out time as a team, then I think you'll be much better off. I think your team will be more effective. Pick a day and get everybody that can to come in on that day, because I don't think there is a substitute. You can't do nothing. You can't do nothing, and you can't leave it to chance, and you can't leave it to like, I'll pull you into the Zoom when you're interested. It just will not happen.
I think you're totally right. And I think I've seen that a lot at different companies who, not necessarily that I've worked at, but that I know people who've worked at, where it's like working from home is spouted as this magical thing. Especially pre-pandemic, it was, and you get to work from home every Wednesday. And it was like, where's the benefit, right? Look, having a team that you can communicate with, having a team that you can engage with, having those informal conversations, it kind of makes me think of high school. Like when you're like, we're going
to go back there, are we?
We're going to go back there. How did you make friends in high school? And what it basically comes down to is repeated, non-forced social interaction.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a very good point.
You made friends with these people because you saw them every single day. So when you're in the office, if you come to the office every day, Bridget's going to sit down with their team and maybe get a coffee, or maybe go out to lunch and maybe go, hey, Nick, I'm just going to pop upstairs for coffee. Do you want to come with? And they're gonna bond as a team. Whereas you're totally right. Working from home, you can't do that. I can't go to someone on my team and be like, I'm just going to go make a coffee for 10 minutes and then hang out. What I can do, though, is I can jump in the Slack huddle for our private team channel, and I can post a little thing and be like, hey, guys, I'm just hanging out here if anyone wants to come and chat. But you've got to foster that environment. You've got to make people want to jump in and come hang out and be like, hey, I'm just working on this problem if anyone wants to look. See me? I love to be a fly on the wall when somebody's coding, because I'm just excited by the job. I'm excited to learn. And the thing is, anyone may know something that I don't. I love that approach, because it may be the most junior person in the company. It may be the most senior person. It may be a topic that I consider myself an expert on, but I don't know what everyone else's experience is. So they may know something that I don't, or better yet, I may know something that they don't. Actually, both are good. I don't know if one's better than the other. But the point is, there's often a two-way learning, and all it takes is seeing them do something to go, they don't know about this trick, or wait, hold on, go back for a sec. What did you just do? How did you do this? And then suddenly your mind is blown and you've learned something. That's why the job's amazing. Mm-hmm. And that is a problem. Without that space to do that cross-learning in, it's like, that is a big problem about working from home full-time. If you can't come into the office, if you can't do pairing, if you can't have that incidental learning, it does make it harder to feel like a team.
Yeah.
So we've got all these benefits to working from home, but there are absolutely some negatives. But I think if the team is working towards it. And it's a goal for the team because it's not just one person. You need everyone to have that buy-in, to want to communicate, to want to be a part of those forced fun times. First couple of weeks at SEEK, when I came in, I would come in, I'd go up to the Thursday drinks on level 6 at the Hub, which is an amazing place to be. It's really cool, really great lighting, really great building, #plug. And I would grab myself a drink, and I was just going up to random people, and I was just like, hey, how you doing? I'm Elliott, I'm from blah team, and what are you? Because, I wanted to meet people, I really had to pull that extrovert hat on though, but I was
you're pulling it pretty far. That's
right.
Yeah.
So, I actively, and I was like, this is against every natural instinct of mine to just go out to randoms at the company. But I was like, it's important. And there are so many cool people at SEEK. And this kind of goes back to that working from home thing. You don't meet these people unless you make an effort.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's absolutely negatives.
What were you going to say before, Bridget?
Yeah, it's like kind of hard to meet people from across teams as well, working from home, right? Like when I come into the office, I feel like I do get more of that, like talking to other teams and finding out what they're doing. And I do also really like that because I think that's bringing a lot more knowledge into the team than just if I kept talking to my team, right? Because we've been solving problems the same way. We're not finding out what others are doing for the most part until I'm in the office and talking to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I coming to SEEK and going into an internal kind of, platformy tooling team, I had it in my mind before I got here that I was going to be the person that Elliott's describing, right?
Yeah.
I was going to be Elliott and going up to everybody and saying hi, whatever, which is not my natural inclination. I think I'm I'm definitely somewhere between an introvert and an extrovert.
My natural inclination, just to put it out there, is to not go out, is to stay home, play video games and pour a nice glass of whatever, whether it's cold water or wine or...
Totally. And I think I think that's the right way to do it. But it was something that was on my mind coming to SEEK, and then starting the pandemic, it really did make that very hard. I think I'm trying to make up for a little bit now, but it was something that, being in an internally facing team, knowing everybody and what everybody's up to, and at least having a little kind of connection in every kind of spot, is incredibly useful and valuable. It's useful and valuable. So I wouldn't say it's more useful and valuable as someone in an internal team, but it is incredibly important because if you're not listening and interacting with those people, you're going to build the wrong stuff, build stuff people don't need. And so it was.
Isn't that always the favorite one? You're like, when you put in hours or weeks or years of effort into something, you're like, yeah, this is going to be great. It's going to solve this problem. And then you're like, oh, nobody uses it. Oh, man. Why spend 6 weeks automating something when you can do it manually for 4 minutes? Is that the meme? That's not the meme. I'm messing it up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if you're definitely putting 6 weeks into something and you haven't gone to people who would hopefully use it to find out what it should be doing, then that's completely wrong. Especially if it's years. You should be testing with people as soon as possible, gathering requirements. I think with internal tooling, you do kind of have to be your own product manager, basically, right? You've got to do product, you've got to do UX, you have to go out and find out what people want.
So isn't this the fantastic thing about being an engineer? I'm hearing the exact same thing that the front-end team, the back-end team, the internal team, it doesn't matter as an engineer. Those skills are so transferable, which is really exciting because it means that it doesn't matter if this is an internal tool. It doesn't matter if it's an external tool. You have a user group. They have pain points. You are providing a solution to a problem, which is why I love this job. How good is that when you're like, oh, I'm so annoyed these Cypress tests are failing or this other thing's failing, and then somebody comes along and solves it for you, and you're just like, oh my God, you've saved me hours or years, or just the headache of doing it. It's just... It's so good, and I think when you can provide that to someone, you get that little dopamine hit of you've made someone's life better, right?
Yeah.
So working from home, yay or nay, Bridget?
Oh yeah, of course it's gonna be yay.
Yay! I mean, yeah. I can't simplify it that much. Like I said, I'm very strong. My current job is effectively fully remote in the sense that I don't have to come to the office if I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
My next job will be fully remote, but there's got to be the right structure around it, right? Like it can't just be fully remote and we
never talk.
and we never interact with each other.
Yep.
So it's here to say I don't want to go back to 5 days a week at the office. But
I can't actually imagine doing that again.
neither can I. We did it last year. I don't know. We had like a Hive Week thing. Everybody was in the office, and it was exhausting.
Yeah, Hive Week was pretty good for a lot of reasons, but I got to say,
but yes,
there was a couple of things that kind of threw me. I mean, we had Hive Week, and then we had our hackathon, another hashtag plug, which was fantastic. But I got to tell you, I was completely exhausted. I came in 9 out of 10 working days in a row, which I was sitting there, I was going, this is the most I've been in the office days in a row in like 3 years.
Yeah.
It was a huge shift, and
used
it
to
was
do that every week.
I know, I was
Every
crazy. I was
week,
like, I
every
felt like
month,
I'd
4
wasted
years.
so much time on the tram, not being able to do anything.
Yeah,
and my commute isn't too bad, but you know, back when I was in my junior days, my commute was like 2.5 hours a day, right?
Oof.
You know, with trains and waiting around. So, you know, I used to bust out the Nintendo DS and I would just go into my own little happy place while waiting 40 minutes for a train or whatever. But now you're like, I have a 30-second commute, you know? It's hard to
Doesn't
beat.
get better than that. Yeah.
Right. Thanks for listening to us today on SEEK Bytes. Hope you enjoyed listening.